Good. Good evening. Welcome to the Road Advisory Committee. It's May 3rd already, 2023. Call to order at 6:31. No one's wrong over there, so.
It's always wrong.
It is. Every time they touch it, it moves.
We go by apple time.
I brought, this is for our names. There were a couple meetings ago, somebody was mentioning they wanted to see our names. So there's, oh, it's right here. Actually could probably use my name tag or my card from the board, but. Did anybody want to make changes to the agenda? Or additions or remove something? Now I know we're missing, oh, no, never mind. We need to do roll call. I'm sorry. Patrick, are you doing minutes tonight?
Bob and I are gonna work on it.
Okay, because he's gonna. Do you want to do roll call or do you want to?
Sure. Jillian, Kerry.
Present.
Ian, Hubert.
Present.
Patrick Shields, present. Walsh, not here. Groden.
Present.
Jeff Human.
Present.
Lloyd Townsend.
Present.
Linda Smith is not present.
Okay, adoption of the agenda. I guess now we can do that. Any additions, subtractions, or comments or? Oh,
I'll move the agenda. I can second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Time for public comment. There's nobody in person. Anybody online?
Yeah, Rob Patterson just put his hand up. I'm hoping that the timer comes through. It's 5 minutes for public comment.
They cannot see that though.
Okay.
When they're,
I will give a heads up at 30 seconds before the end of 5 minutes then. Rob Patterson.
Thank you, Rob Pattinson, Scio Township. I was disappointed in the minutes in the agenda packet. They were the bare minimum of what minutes are. I would like to see more complete minutes. The last meeting was quite an important one, and it made no mention whatsoever of Roy Townsend's issue with full disclosure. And thank you, Bob Groden, for calling that issue out. That was a very, very important one, and that should have been documented. Thank you.
thank you, Rob.
Next we have Kathleen Brandt.
Hello, this is Kathleen Brandt, Scio resident. I wanted to remind this committee that the DDA meeting on Monday is discussing Dino Drive. And the reason I bring that up is because multiple members of that committee, including Mr. Hathaway and one member from the Roads Committee, their intent would be that at least half of that road paving would come from general fund monies. This is significant because if you understand the taxing mechanism for the DDA gets half of Scio Township's operating millage. They get 1/2 of that. So if the DDA pays for Dino Drive 1/2, for example, and the general fund pays for 1/2, that means that all businesses on the road essentially get their road paved for free. Because DDA money comes out of business taxes, which they do pay into. The other half would come from taxes accumulated from residents. Now, does anybody think that that's fair, that a business should get their road paved for free? It certainly does not happen for, as some people like to call it, neighborhood roads. The only way my road gets fixed is if we engage in an SAD, and we pay 100% of that. So in no fashion do I agree that any general fund money should be going to pay for that road, Dino Drive. In fact, Jay Holland from the DDA had proposed that either the businesses pay or the road will just go into disrepair. And if they don't want to pay for it, then so be it. That, in my opinion, would be the same as what happens to my road. So that's what I'm advocating to you folks to campaign for, to champion, as well as what I suggest to the DDA. I've done this multiple times, and I also bring these thoughts to the Board of Trustees. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
No additional public comments.
Okay. There was a couple of correspondences. Kathleen Brandt provided her presentation that she presented at the last meeting. Rochelle Reese, she did not email the road advisory committee directly. She emailed, she had attended a board meeting and during public comments, and I suggested to her that she emailed me. I live in her neighborhood, so I know I was able to just swing over there and check it out. And there's some, I did explain road funding and, different things to her. And they have a little bit of a interesting situation, Park Road and then a private road. But we have a list of things that we're going through to get that checked out. And then the other two are, as you can see, are for about the township-wide road SAD. Do you have any comments? Anybody have comments on the correspondences or insights, questions? No? Okay. The next item would be discussion only. It's Jeff, you had the last meeting, we included your it's kind of been an ongoing because there was.
Yes, this is a different thing shared than the last one. So these are coming from Planning Commission.
Oh, okay.
The first thing I shared, I'm trying to remember what it was. I'd have to look back. I'm not remembering off the top of my head.
Yeah, there was another article and then which triggered your article.
That wasn't from the Planning Commission. My apologies. That one was from me. I was responding to an article in MLive, I want to say, that had said that traffic fatalities have been increasing. And so it was a response to why. But this document that's on the agenda tonight, this was shared with me, at least from Chairperson Culvertson on the Planning Commission, that she wanted me to share with the Roads Advisory Committee. And I had forgotten to share it when she had sent it to me the first time, so I shared it this time.
Was that from that was the Huron River guide, that one? Right?
It's called, I just had it pulled up. It is a Huron River guidebook.
Yes, okay.
It's called How Much Development is Too Much, a guidebook on using impervious surfaces and gravel road capacity. Yeah, that's, I don't remember who brought it up to me, but when we pave roads, there's, when you have a vehicle that leaks fluids or whatever, and with the gravel, it absorbs the fluid. But when it's
the paved, it washes off into the ditches and then which ends up in our streams and whatnot. And also, so that reminded me of not just that issue, but also I had run across an article about paved roads create more heat, you know, because of the sun. And in Los Angeles and in New York, they have banned asphalt. So they use cement, which is much more expensive, and it keeps the cities cooler. You know, that's more, when you have high rises and whatnot, I mean, it's trapping heat anyway. And especially, you know, out west, it's gonna be really warm. So, but I see that, you know, I'm like, well, that kind of makes sense, you know, and just driving, I drove up to Grand Blanc a couple times over the weekend. And I noticed that there were certain sections that were asphalt and they tend to break down faster than cement. But on the other hand, the cement, when they do highways, they're in sections. So then you get the bumps and you can hear that. And I know that the people over on by Walnut Ridge and, you know, that area, they hear M14. And yeah, so it's like, what do you do?
Well,
But-
you know, I read this, oh, sorry.
No, I'm just.
Yeah, I mostly skimmed it. I didn't read the entire thing. It is quite lengthy and not all of it's very relevant to what we do here. In fact, I would say that its entire point is not relevant to what we do here. It's more of a call for planning for denser development in core areas as opposed to sprawled out development. It points out that while denser developments are more impervious percentage-wise in a land usage, you know, compared to, say, a more open area, whenever you have lots of these, you know, single-family homes on an acre spread out across a greater area, it has a larger impact on the impervious, sorry, it has a lot more impervious surfaces than those same units could be in a more, in a denser location, right? And this is largely due to the amount of roads required. And I believe that a lot of what it was saying about gravel roads was that, you know, they can only support so much traffic. There's a limit, right? And once you've hit that limit, you're going to be better off paving it due to the maintenance to try and keep that gravel road up. I think they said the best gravel road was like a maximum of 1,000 cars a day, if I'm remembering correctly. Once you hit that threshold, you might as well just pave it because you're going to be repairing it constantly.
Well, yeah, isn't paving more expensive to maintain, Roy?
Well, I think what you're saying is, what, I've said this before, there's that threshold, gravel road, I mean, once it's less than 1,000, you know, 400, 600 works fine, 600, 800 gets, but once you get that 1,000, it's really, really hard to maintain a gravel road.
Oh, just because it would,
Yeah, because,
okay, yeah, I get it.
unless you got a
That makes
grader out
sense.
there every other day, which, you know, who has resources to grade that road every other day type of thing. So it becomes a real maintenance costly. So end of the day, you'll figure out the cost long run, it's cheaper to pave it. I think is what.
Yeah.
Because I'm familiar with that document since I was at the road commission.
So how is this relevant to what we're doing?
Well, if you read our charge, we're supposed to be studying all this crap, so, sorry.
And I agree. I mean, the bigger thing is, it's sort of like looking at planning, because a lot of townships, here again, obviously we're not setting precedents, but you know, it's like, oh, we want large lots. So what you end up doing is using up all this acreage for these larger lots. You're better off to like, okay, let's condense and develop where there is water and sewer, or condense development. So let's say if you had 40 acres, why don't you put all the development in 5 or 10 of it, and leave the other 30 or 35 acres as open space, so it actually would absorb water. Because once you make big
Oh, I see.
lots, people are gonna mow them, people are gonna, you know, do stuff. So it's less than you know, it's gonna create more runoff. But if you leave, you know, 35 acres natural and had all the people live in the smaller area, it's better for water quality. and all
Okay,
those type of
so not necessarily cramming everybody along Jackson Road and the rest of our town should be open. So it just for, like, if what you
Right,
said,
if you
40
were
acres,
out
then if there's
in the
like 5 of
country,
them
right.
that had,
But
Yeah.
make those homes closer together, then if it's a 40-acre parcel, don't use all 40 acres for everyone getting, you know.
I don't get it. This is a free country. If we want to buy 5 acres or 10 acres, we buy 5 or 10 acres. But this is not Russia. to where we push people together in a less dense area is ridiculous. And I think our planning commission is way off base
But we're just trying to figure out how.
between this and gas stove outlawing and all that nonsense. I don't even think this is part of our purview right now.
Well,
But it's
I'm
just
more
about
curious
sustain-
about this Dino Road thing that Kathleen brought up.
Okay, can I just say something? Sure. I think it's about sustainability and long-term, what do we want, Yeah, we're limited what we can and can't do. Obviously, that's, a lot of this is outside our purview, but I think long-term, where do we want to be as Scio Township? You want to be, all this area developed with homes on, or do you want to preserve more open space? And obviously, people have voted numerous times to purchase more open space. So that seems to be a priority for people in Scio Township, because they're really write a check every year to buy more open space. And they've done it county-wide too. The county has the same thing. So that's part of that, how can we preserve and maintain water quality is by having, less developed areas and more open space. So.
And there's an interesting comment here on page 9 about the importance of bringing the developer, the road commission, and the local government together to get everything locked down in terms of the details before you actually start a development. So we don't end up with some of the situations we've got in our community where there are places that aren't appropriately are left in messes over a long period of time that should have been dealt with at the beginning.
Well, I know one of the issues right now is, the on-site sewers that they want to put on these developed, and there's lots of issues with those. But, it was pointed out that, Scio reacts, we don't plan. And part of the big issue is that we don't have staff. We don't have departments. If you look at even like Pittsfield, they did a presentation and that was excellent presentation. And so I went to their website to say, I wonder how many, if they have departments or if they do they have committees? How do they work together? And they have it all. We don't. We're missing a big part and we're very, we're short-staffed with the departments we have already, but we need to get those implemented. So, when it even comes to road funding, no matter what road funding we do, who's going to maintain that and who's going to keep good records? And I mean, just going through the 2013 SAD is like, whoa, wait a minute, we didn't. Yeah, there's just lots, but so this really comes back to the township and then, our foundation and starting there. I mean, we can't say, okay, no more development, no more plans or no more road paving until we get this taken care of. But, we really, I keep saying this to the board, we need administration. We need, whatever, finance director and whatnot. And it just seems like it's taking forever, but there was, so we have, as far as the 1 acre lots, there's in our ordinance says something about if you're not in a municipal area, you have to be on a minimum of 1 acres for the septic and a well, because you have to have them separate, away from each other. So if we can't tell people, well, you can't purchase a parcel and then that, have a house, or if you already have a house, then you can't, downsize it to something smaller. I think that what we could do is along Jackson Road, there is the Jackson Road overlay where they've already back in the 2030, I don't know how old this is, but it's old. And they planned on, having the dense community or the, for water and whatnot. Not water. We have water there, but it's the sewer that's the problem because we can expand the water across 94. The sewer to expand would be really expensive. So then, especially over at Baker Road where Heritage Woods, they want to, do that. I mean, they want to put an on-site sewer. But I think that, I think the committees really need to all, maybe have a couple from each committee, have a meeting, and then with the manager, when we have a full-time, permanent manager, really get clear on what we want to do. And of course, I know what we're talking about other things that are not roads, but the roads will, It's not, well, not only that, we're gonna get to it later on, but roads and bike paths, and they want us to do sidewalks as well, or have that under our purview.
This Dino Drive thing, Kathleen.
Well, I did talk to Jessica about that because I'm opposed to having taxpayers pay for those roads because, you know, if we have to, if, you know, especially a lot of us haven't had improved roads, but for us to fund that when the township could initiate a special assessment district over there.
That was talked about before.
Yeah, and they won't.
Sorry, that has come up before. An SAD.
So the
I'm not sure if it was the one that they didn't want to participate.
well,
And the road's not that bad. I drove down.
the township did not initiate that SAD.
Okay.
That's there's a particular protocol to initiate a SAD. So you,
I thought it was more it was discussed. I'm not
it
saying
was, and they said, well, we're
initially.
gonna go over and talk to the business owners and see if they want to contribute. And there was 2 business owners that said yes, the rest of them said no. So when I talked to Jessica about the DDA, I said, you know, we should not be using general funds or whatnot. She said the DDA is kind of its own entity in some ways and they can do whatever they want. I mean, it was separate from the board and I'm like, well, then why are they asking the board for approval for $250,000 out of the general fund? So I need to get clear on that. Do you understand it?
Well, the DDA has a separate revenue and they have obviously in your overall budget, they have a separate budget. But I think what Linda brought up last time is 20 years ago, whenever they did Enterprise, I think in April Drive or Parkland Plaza, one of those roads on the south side of Jackson towards Wagner, there was an SAD, actually, yeah.
All of them?
And what happened is the DDA paid half and the business owners along there paid the other half. And that money went back into a revolving
The
fund.
Township Improvement Revolving Fund, yes.
And that was paid for by those businesses. And the idea back then was, it's like, we were sort of stuck. It's hard to sell bonds and you don't really want to sell bonds for like $100,000. If you sell bonds, you want to sell for like $1 million because it costs money to do bonding. So the thought was, if the township, the DDA and the township set up a revolving fund, then there'd be money. So when road 2 and road 3 came, you'd use that money, pay itself back. So I think what my understanding is, the DDA is asking that the revolving fund to use that money. It's not general fund money, it's actually revolving fund money that was paid in from the businesses in that. So then they take that money and put it towards Dino Drive. It's not general fund, it's revolving fund money that came from the DDA, is my understanding, and that's what Linda seemed to imply. And I remember them setting up that revolving fund in
2008.
03 or 04 or 06 or something.
I just found the resolution and I did send that over to Jessica because she was looking for it. Somehow I found it and it was stashed in my stuff. So yeah, there's specific language, but there's only 147,000 in that.
Right, I think
Fund.
Dino's 240, DDA is willing to put in 100, so then other 140 come from the revolving fund.
Okay, but still,
But
You know-
shouldn't the revolving fund be replenished
yes.
by the businesses on Dino Drive?
So the
Otherwise, you exhaust the
Right.
revolving fund.
So that it was supposed to, they started that to begin or have that improvement fund, revolving fund for, that was seed money to fund the next road. And then the next road would be, you know, another special assessment with interest, go back in, and that would keep building it up. So the next one. Well, along the way, somebody said, well, you know what, let's start fund 400 for township wide. Let's start all these little individual funds for all these other ones, which,
Question would be, can the DDA, when Mike Comey here said, you can set up a levy under Act 1,
51?
Act 51, the township could do a levy, obviously. The other question maybe for him is, could the DDA set up a levy that just levies, the businesses in that DDA, quarter mil, half mil, tenth of a mil, whatever that, and say, okay, you want to do Dino Drive in 2023 or 2024. You want to do, you develop plans like year 1 is this, Betty is this, there's all those little roads along the Jackson Boulevard and Newman, different things. Develop a plan, and could they just set up a tax themselves because I mean, they are a separate entity, you know, separate. you know,
Right,
and
but
It seems like, and then they just tax themselves some small amount, generate $100,000-$200,000 a year, and they could fix their own roads without, you know, wouldn't affect anyone, but it's good for business because obviously if you own land, I don't own land in the DDA, but if you did, so like, end of the day, you probably want your roads in good shape, right? If you're going to try to sell your business, as roads sort of deteriorate, it's gonna be harder to sell that business. And if you can put a small tax, because the DDA taxable value is quite large. I really don't know how large it is, but it's probably $500 million. I mean, our taxable value of the township is what, 1.2 billion, something like that.
yeah, something like
So
that.
DDA is probably nearly half of that. I really don't know, but anyways, that to me would be a way to, because I mean, you're right, because if you do just replenish the revolving fund, what happens in a year? But the other hand is the revolving fund's been sitting there for 20 years. So do you just have it sit there for another 20 years and never use it? So it seems like there should be some kind of
No,
solution.
I think the fundamental point is that the businesses should be funding their street. If you look at the street, it's a small street, it's a dead end, I guess, with a number of businesses there.
Well, and
Why did the DDA, who even prompted the DDA to talk about it?
well,
If you don't drive.
well.
Why?
Because there's a park at the end of it.
No, because some of the business owners came to them asking, and they fixed probably half the roads and along the
Well,
Jackson
and
over the last 20
There's
years.
that one business that uses really heavy trucks. I think they haul metal,
Combined Metals of Michigan.
something, yeah, and if that breaks, those heavy trucks break down.
Right. But
Yeah,
also Dino is probably 20 to 30 years old.
I didn't think it was that bad.
What's that again? Not so bad.
I didn't think it was that bad. It looks old,
not as bad as my
but it
road.
wasn't like,
Speed up.
it wasn't that big enough, I didn't
No,
think.
it's passable for sure.
Yeah.
It's not like your road.
I have a truck, so it's fun no matter where I drive.
So I mean, that just, yeah, is there a way that they could fund their own tax themselves and fix their own roads?
Well, with the DDA, once the bonds are paid off, the DDA dissolves. So then we come back. And the other thing with Act 51, the DDA was not, it was created after Act 51, where the township was created before Act 51, you know, that clause in there.
Well, Act 51 is 1951, DDA was like 1988.
Right.
So you're saying.
Well, isn't it, you know, that thing about,
Right, but that was more Headley though, right?
yeah,
So it was, DDA was probably when was Headley, early 90s?
78.
Oh, 78?
Mhm.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not turning it, but.
Okay, well, I
it
mean,
might be a
it's-
solution, might be a potential
It's a
option for them.
It's a,
I agree, you know, you don't want to take money out of the general fund, but I think confusion is revolving fund is not the general fund, it is a separate pot that the DDA did establish back 20 years ago. But if you're not going to replenish it, then, but the other thing, if you're not ever going to use it, it just sits there and
no,
doesn't even collect interest probably.
no, we're paying audit fees on it every year. Okay, I'll look into this. Act 51, I'll see if we can, you said the levy. I don't know, I think that the township could just initiate a special assessment, and if those business owners come back with a 20% written objection petition, it stops it in its tracks.
I think last year, the DDA was always willing to pay half.
Not always, because I sat in when they, you know, for Enterprise Drive, when Lou and Will went in front of them and said, oh, if you, we have this matching grant, and if you pay the other half, then we'll get Enterprise Drive. And Sloan, what's her first name? Margaret? That's not right. She was on and she says, well, why can't we do a special assessment district? They should be paying, these business owners should be paying under a SAD, or, you know, for the roads. And Will and Lou says, oh, it's too late in the season. We're gonna lose this money, this grant money, if we don't do this road now. So they agreed, but they said from now on, all those roads should have SADs.
So we have the authority to spend taxpayer money on things like this?
No,
Well, then,
so that with the,
I don't understand. I'm really at a loss when we talk about these things, you know?
So-
To me, I put things down to common sense, not all these rules and laws and all this other stuff, okay? We should only spend taxpayer money on things that impact the whole community. Not a stupid little road like this where all you got is businesses there and you got a preserve at the end of it, so what?
I
Well-
suspect that some people would tell you that it does affect the whole, I'm playing devil's advocate.
Oh,
People want to go to the park and.
well, go ahead, go to the park, take a walk.
I've never
mean,
seen
it's-
anybody back there. There's lots of condoms and drugs and garbage.
Come on,
Again, common
on
sense.
Saturday, they're gonna-
Again,
Common sense.
devil's advocate.
You can be a devil all you want, but you gotta use common sense when it comes to spending taxpayer money.
I agree. But we still have to follow law.
You know, normal distributions, you know, what you're saying is the tail. And I'm saying you gotta cater to the normal distribution.
Right. So the thing that would therefore imply the roads that are used by the majority of people.
Does that make
Well,
sense?
in the next round of funding, township wide, right? If we do all the roads, I mean, of course, not private roads. Then those things will be taken care of.
Right, in theory.
Yeah, in theory. And it-
Theory.
Okay, so in the DDA, since it's a capture, so whenever we vote on a millage, now there's certain millages they can't capture from, and I can't remember what those are right now off the top of my head. But then they have the money, and the money is supposed to be paying off those bonds. Now, they kept saying, we can never do improvements, it's, you know, that's something in the law. Well, it's not in the law, they can do improvements. So, I don't know if, and I'm trying to think, I mean, they came in front of the board for our approval. So the regular board, not the DDA. So does the DDA, do they get to spend that money without board approval?
Which money?
The DDA money, the captured money?
Yeah, well, I think they have a board, a DDA board, obviously, and they make recognition, but probably has to then come before
It's-
the township board.
Okay,
But it is, like you said, it is a separate line item in the budget, and they do, like I said, they capture their own money. The whole premise of the DDA is basically when, you know, this was a 2-lane road, Jackson was 2-lane road, open fields. If you improve it by building the billboard and put water and sewer out there, then you're gonna have more development, which is gonna, then the base of agricultural land, let's say it's zoned as agricultural, like where Meyer was, and the shopping, the car dealers are, when that gets upgraded to car dealers and Meyers and Lowe's and Menards, the increase in taxable value, that's what they capture. I think they capture maybe 50% of that increase in value. So let's say the taxable value before Meyer's not a good one with the whole dark store thing. But let's say the car dealerships before was valued at $1 million. Now there's whatever, let's say that one is like 5 or 6 car dealers. Now it's probably like $5 million. I don't know, but you know what I'm saying? So the increase is $4 million. That's what they capture. So the idea from EDA is like, if we invest infrastructure in our community, we're gonna attract businesses to your community. It's gonna pay, you know, bring new taxes in, which will pay for these infrastructure improvements. So that help pay for the water, the sewer, and the road improvements on Jackson Boulevard and Baker Road and Z Road and those Wagner Road, and those type of things.
okay.
So what's the kind of the action here? Is it just general discussion, or are we expected to do something, or
No,
it's just an FYI?
yeah, because Kathleen brought it up. I mean, the Dino Drive is not on the agenda, but
Well, do we make a proposal, a recommendation to the board?
we could.
I mean,
Should we what? Don't do it. Do us sad.
do we say?
Well, the other thing is, if you look, we took those roads out of our, because we said the business route, along the business route, I think Tino, there was like 3 or 4 other roads. We just said, well, that's really in the DEA. It's really not under the Roads Advisory Committee. And we need to improve, you know, when we approved our road agreement in February, we just said, you know, that's really not under ours. I mean, I guess we make a motion, but really.
Well, you know, it brings up a really good point. I mean, again, what is the road advisory committee supposed to do? You know,
Advise.
yeah, advise what though? Because when
Well, we can make a
like,
recommendation here. I mean, it's as simple as that. I'd like to sit here and then have something come out of it which is, well, this is what we're going to recommend. You know, I mean, I have the same question with the two documents, like, what are we going to do with the information? Maybe we go tell another committee, hey, you should read these documents, like the planning commission maybe. But yeah, I mean, we could make a recommendation. I don't know, I'm just like, I would like to have something come from us.
Mhm.
And I actually do believe that an SAD is the right way to do it. And I was playing devil's advocate because I do agree with Kathleen's comment. But you got to acid test things in both directions.
Okay, if we choose to do a special assessment, that means you've got to get your policy finished.
No, the DDA can do that. They're their own committee.
No, okay, so, no, because the board's gonna need a, oh gosh, this is crazy. We're gonna need a policy, and I did find one, a really good one, West Bloomfield. I mean, it lays it out, except they include,
Sponsored by SADs.
yeah, a special assessment process. It's, but it has water and sewer in it, so we just took out the water and sewer and left everything else because they break it down to like, oh, if you want water and sewer, then you have to have 65% of the vote.
Why don't we
So-
just say that we recommend that township money is not used and let the board come up with how they want to do whatever they want to do.
Yep.
Okay, if you're telling me Will doesn't have the authority anyway, then we ought to go on record and say, cut it out.
Okay. Do you have a, I don't bring my computer, so anybody have a format for recommendation, motion or resolution, or I don't know.
I can capture it in words.
Chris, are we trying to tell the
I'm ready to-
DDA,
I've
are
got
we
to
just
start.
trying to tell the DDA what to do
No,
versus?
the board,
Boy,
because if the board approves DDA projects,
the thesis is that between DDA and Scio Township, they're going to jointly fund whatever, paving or whatever they're doing to Dino Drive. The RAC is recommending that we do not spend Scio taxpayer dollars as part of this project, period. And let them figure out how they want to pay for it.
you know, when the Enterprise Drive, when they did that, did that go in front of the board for approval? Because if it didn't, then the DDA said, okay, and they did it on their own. I think it's something we need to look into.
When you say taxpayer money, DDA is taxpayer money. So you shouldn't say,
Scio Township.
I would, maybe if it's general fund, but I mean, DDA has their own funds, for us to tell them how to or not to spend their
They can
money.
do it. Go ahead, let them do it. Why should we be a 50% player in this? It doesn't make sense to me. The businesses should be paying for it. Not the general taxpayer.
Well, no, it's the DDA, it's not the general taxpayer, it's the DDA.
That's half, right? I thought we said they put up half and we put up half.
So I'm agreeing with, in my heart of hearts, I'm agreeing with you. We should do something. I'd like to have some action. I don't think we know it. This whole conversation
You know
has
what?
been speculation about this, that, and the other thing. We can't, I don't think, write a cogent recommendation to the Board of Trustees with what we know now.
But what we do know is that the township board can initiate a special assessment district. And we could do that for Dino Drive.
So we said we recommend that the township.
Officially initiate.
There is a comment here from Kathleen in the chat which says, sorry, Roy, that's not how the DDA captures taxes. They get exactly 50% of the operating taxes of Scio, which is based on total taxable value of all properties in the township. FYI.
Okay,
I don't think that's fine. I don't know.
We don't know. I don't know. We don't know.
It doesn't really matter.
well, one way or another, they're getting money from the taxes that we pay. From the villages.
Actually, this is Kathleen. If you look at the agenda packet for the DDA and the financial records, you will see that that is exactly what the DDA gets. They get 50% capture. Check it out. I'm not wrong, Roy.
Within the DDA though, not township wide. They can't
No,
capture
from-
money, they can't capture money outside the.
Roy,
DDA.
you really need
you
to do
look-
your homework before you start saying statements that are not correct. Look at the financial documents in the DDA agenda packet. Check it out before you say things that you don't know to be true. It shows exactly 50% of the general operating tax collected. So Scio Township gets half of that for operating, which is the general fund, and DDA gets the other half. I know you don't want me to interrupt, but I can't listen to this incorrect information.
Okay, thank you.
Let's recommend to the board to initiate a special assessment district for Dino Drive. And I'm trying to remember, I'm gonna look up Enterprise Drive and see if that went in front of the board for approval or not. So from my understanding, what I remember is that the DDA was going to pay half of Dino Drive, and the rest was, the township general fund was going to pay for the rest. Now, that may have changed. I haven't looked into anything or heard anything, you know, because got a ton on my plate.
Seems like we have a portion of the facts, but not all. the information.
Correct.
I mean, it's hard to,
Yes,
because I thought it was a revolving fund. It's a general fund, I agree. But we, it's, you know, what pot it is from, and there's a lot of moving parts in here. It's generally, we've been focusing on all the roads outside of the DDA is what we've been, our main focus has been. The DDA sort of focuses on roads within the DDA.
okay. What should we do here?
I would have to abstain if we were to vote on this. I don't think we have enough information.
I agree with Patrick.
So so this is going to be on the DDA agenda for, when's the next meeting?
The 8th, 5 days.
Oh, it is. Oh, wow. Oh, okay.
I think we need to bring it up to the Board of Trustees meeting and get the facts and say, if this is how it's going to be, we disagree. And get it publicly stated.
Yeah, and their meeting is the day before our meeting, but I can send an email to the group or to the group, to the,
If you don't think we have the right facts, get the damn facts. The point is, again, common sense. I don't think we should be paying for it versus the businesses that are on that little street. That's my only point.
And the other thing is, I don't remember an agreement with WCRC, but then I don't know how fast you need that. We're gonna do this road and then we go to the
Well, the Road Commission gave an agreement last year.
for Dino?
But just never got approved because it wasn't the funding. So this was talked about last year.
Okay,
So I think they just have to update their agreement. I mean, road is the same type of improvement. You just have to plug in the new cost.
Don't you have to do a report to the Board of Trustees from this committee?
Mhm.
Why not put something in there that raises it as a topic for discussion?
well, I'll do the report, but then I'll have to bring it up.
Okay. Let's get the facts, bring it back next time.
Okay. Okay, so I wrote down some things. What are some questions that you have?
How is it funded?
How is it funded? Like first one. Right?
How is the DDA funded?
No, how is,
If they were to pave the road
Oh, how is Dino?
without any contribution from the businesses, how would it be funded? And by that, we're basically trying to figure out whether it's unique funding to the DDA or Or is it township wide?
Bob, any questions in particular you think should be asked of the board? Any questions in particular you think should be asked of the board?
Well, the first question is why Will, if he doesn't have the authority, why he's making deals? That's the first question. It is not the first time we've caught him making deals behind people's backs. So I think that needs to be exposed. And then second one is, why aren't we at first going to the businesses? Why are we even considering using taxpayer money for a street like that? You know, this could, I mean, I don't want to bring up the issue again. This goes back to the Park Road thing. The thesis is the same, okay? Someone thinks that they have a blank check to spend taxpayer money, and they don't. And if they do, then we shouldn't even have a road committee. We're worthless.
Okay. I have a couple. Any more? No, and I think I'm gonna ask, it'll be the DDA capture, how that works. I mean, Donna's explained it, but. Okay, anything else?
Under that subject?
Yes.
Or
Okay,
I do have one on the previous subject. The two documents, how do we want to, is it just,
so those are just discussion only.
okay, just education basically?
Yeah,
Have they gone to the planning commission?
that,
Well, sorry, so you're talking about the first document we were discussing?
The two documents you brought, how much development is too much and environmentally friendly roads?
that was mine.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't do the second.
Okay,
Yeah, and then there's a third one.
I think,
Did the other one come through?
I saw the third one, yes.
Yeah, the other one was from South America or Central America, something like that, but it was really good.
that's
It was
the,
kind of like the same thing, development and types of roads and whatnot.
they are long. I mean, I scanned it like you.
Yeah. we couldn't read that whole thing.
Yeah, they are long.
I just think planning, basically, what I think we're saying is just raise our awareness with that kind of information. And if we're going to do that, then we should be passing it around to the other committees who have jurisdiction over construction.
Yeah, I agree that this would probably be better as just the planning commission. I think it was, the chair wished to share it with us since it was related with the roads.
I appreciate getting,
Yeah.
open my mind to some things.
Jeff, could you share the other two with the planning commission?
Yes, I
And the
will.
ESTF people?
Thanks.
Yes.
With a smile.
So, okay, well, the DDA was need to write this in somewhere. I guess the DDA topic as an amended to our agenda, but I guess we could put that under new business. I mean, it's kind of late, but I just want to keep track of everything we talked about.
Yeah.
Would that be okay if we just put it under H3?
Yep.
DDA Dino Drive. And then when we choose the next road funding, would the DDA roads be included under township wide as well?
Yeah, because actually it would be interesting, because because the other, I guess the question is, whatever what happens, whatever solution we come up with, we come up with a solution, how does that revenue? Does it stay within DDA? Does it, 'cause like right now, the $85 a parcel that is collected from those businesses within the DDA, is that put into the pot for the 80, the township wide SAD, or is that DDA keep that?
The $85? That's just, no, that's just under this, the SAD. It's, they don't, none of that's captured by them. Is that what you mean?
So yeah, that's the question is, you know, everyone's paying $85 a parcel for those 10 years. Those businesses, when they paid their $85, did that revenue stay within the DDA, or was it revenue spent outside the DDA? Because I don't think we've
It
done.
was
haven't done any
spent on the project list.
So I'm
and-
guessing, so the money they contributed to that was spent outside the DDA, because I don't think there's any local roads in the DDA.
Well, there was the little West Delhi part that was on the project list, but that, now the road commission is closing that down.
Yeah, I don't think there's any local roads, collector roads in the
You know what they're
DDA.
talking about?
Yeah, no,
The second West Delhi, it's on
West Delhi off of Jackson Road.
going north.
94 south.
Home Depot was potentially gonna go in.
Yeah, there's no other connector roads that would be, I think Park Road would be the closest, right? Or
Park Road,
Marshall, but
Parkland Plaza.
yeah, so they still paid in, but they did not capture any of that. So if we had a, let's say a township millage, would they capture? And that would kind of not be good.
I think that'd be important information as we move forward and looking at options. I guess the other, maybe I do have a question. Could the DDA levy their own?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Just within the DDA.
The DDA levy.
Is it not that the DDA can only operate through a TIF? It's the only way they can raise funds, right?
The DDA?
Yes.
No,
Okay.
That's how they raise most of their funds, right? But the question is, could you create, basically, when you do,
Your own
when you
district.
do a special assessment district, you create a boundary, right? You know, like this neighborhood, I mean, we did the township wide, we did the whole township, but when you do a neighborhood SAD, you create a boundary, it's usually that subdivision. Could you create a boundary that's a DDA boundary, the whole DDA? And could they, you know, create their own road or whatever, you wouldn't have to be roads, whatever they want to, you know, and then tax themselves and the revenue would stay in the DDA for whatever type of improvements.
What's the mission of the DDA? What's their charter? What is it?
What I just explained is what the idea was, you would improve infrastructure, so then you would have businesses come to your downtown development authority. Obviously, that's a DDA, downtown development authority. So downtowns could reinvest in themselves to get businesses to come. And Scio said, hey, that's what we'd like to do along Jackson Boulevard. So they created DDA in 1988 or 89. Built the boulevard, put water and sewer, so then businesses such as, you know, the stores along Jackson Boulevard, which created a revenue source for the township.
So there's a boundary around that DDA? Okay.
yeah, and you know, I wonder if they could do a special assessment district just for that boundary.
That's what.
Yeah, and then they could do, maybe, I mean,
Then they could raise revenue for the improved roads within the DDA when it just, they don't be taxed on them, they're, you know,
mhm,
is that an option?
okay,
How does the DDA get funded?
why?
How do they
Oh,
get
how?
funded?
Well, there's two different versions. You know, obviously, the way I understood it when I was involved with it in 89 and 90, you know, working out, I was on the DDA now. But obviously Kathleen, and so no sense getting into that. Let's ask.
It's a,
You want to ask?
yeah,
at
it's
the
a
next
millage
meeting?
capture.
Right.
Yeah, if you look on the Parks and Pathways millage that was passed, they have that written into the ballot language. How much they were, or I think it was that one, but there's certain millages that cannot be captured. I'm kind of thinking it was school millages because they're not.
So when this DDA was established, we seeded it with
They were
a portion
appointed.
of the millage?
It was created,
By who?
Township.
yeah.
By the township.
Mhm.
Okay, so when it was created, it had to be seeded, right? With funds,
No, they,
No,
no?
They just captured additional tax revenue. That's became their source of revenue.
So
Well, that's the seed money for the DDA.
but it's, the DDA can only be established if there's bonds. So we had to take out bonds for the water and sewer and then Jackson Road. So then the DDA is able to capture money from millages to fund the DDA in order to pay back those bonds. So once those bonds are paid in full, we can dismantle the DDA. Now, also back in the day, the DDA had, there's statutes. Well, those statutes have been repealed and replaced, so they're kind of, it's like hard to keep track of. And I don't know how that works because our DDA would have been under the old statutes, and I don't know if there's a grandfather clause or anything like that, but
It has been renewed once too.
there's 2 bonds.
You know what I'm saying? There was actually, there's 3 bonds, but,
3.
it's been renewed, because the life of the DDA was going to expire in 2018. And it was extended another, because at one point it was going to expire because it had a life, either it was 20 or 25 or 30 years. And at that point, the township board decided to extend it for another X number of years.
Well, I know that it goes to 2028, the 1 bond. But I don't know, I mean, that's something I never really thought about until we're talking, until
Based on
roads.
what, based on what though? I would think the planning commission sits down and says, okay, this is the boundary that we want to grow businesses in. And in order to do that, we need a certain amount of infrastructure, right? Whether it be sewers or water or whatever else. And we think an estimate for that's going to be X amount of dollars. And this DDA's got to have that X amount of dollars to help develop the infrastructure to draw business in. Isn't that the theory behind this or not?
Yeah.
I mean,
And also what spurred it was Gelman water.
Yeah,
It's like, we need water, so like, how are we gonna pay for water in South Township? And that was like, oh, someone had the idea of, let's create a DDA. So it could also, we could put water for the people that need water, because the water at that point you can't really drink anymore. And then it's like, okay, also look at the business part of it, how you can develop a business model.
that's why I asked what the mission is. You tell me it's to develop business. Now you're telling me
Well, no,
it's
that's,
to provide clean water because of Gilman.
Well, that's
That's a
was-
different
Kinda
mission.
went
That was a side thing. but the
hand in
main-
hand at the time.
Right.
Well, but that's a different mission, totally different than developing business. That's why I'm asking, what's the mission?
Well, but
And how does that get developed?
Sounds like it was both.
Oh,
yeah,
Okay,
for
is it-
Scio, but in
And
other,
did it expire? Did that piece of the mission expire?
not yet.
Not yet. So there's a certain amount of money then set aside for the Gilman water issue out of that DDA funding or seed funding.
Well, for the construction of the sewer and water that has extended out to Jackson Road through
Is that complete?
yes, the construction's complete, but the paying back of the bond is not. So like the city of Ann Arbor has a DDA, and I believe Pittsfield has a DDA. And really, the master plan, all of that, back in the day, they were, how do we want Scio to look? And then we're just so lucky to have the Gelman thing that, here we need, because a lot of those wells were contaminated, so, but many of them ended up being annexed into Ann Arbor because of that. So, but in the area, so why not extend it, create a DDA, and then bring in more business? And now we have,
Connected to pause icon.
could you,
Connected.
Done.
the other thing is, the DDA technically goes out to Parker Road. So actually, the original plan was for the boulevard to extend out to Parker Road, but so that
Well,
that's one
it-
phase it's never has been.
so, yeah, but if you look at the map, I don't know who created this map, it's just weird, because, Hunter's Trail neighborhood, Hunter's whatever, that is part of the DDA. But then you go to your neighborhood and it's not. My neighborhood's not.
Right.
So I don't know who created, even though my neighborhood has municipal water. And so does yours, right? Yeah.
You don't have to be in the DDA to get water. and sewer. That was-
Right, but you have to be along Jackson Road in order, we can't
Should we try to get back to John?
Yes.
I'm not sure where we are.
Where are we?
We are on G.
So we're on,
G?
the G1 would be the road funding plan, which Bob presented that 2 meetings ago. So it's still printing off in the other room for me because the agenda was so long, the packet was so long. So if anybody could bring that up or has, do you have that, Patrick, on paper,
Can you pass it down?
please? So, and I know I guess this is, I mean, we could still take action, but I think that this may need to be another.
Take action on this or on the.
Yeah, so I put it under possible action because I thought everybody was gonna be here. I mean, and then,
I think our whole idea was to have a discussion. We didn't have a discussion the last time. And we really
Yes.
wanted to dig into it some depth, but
no, both of you were on that subcommittee. So you could discuss or bring it, walk us through.
Patrick, you want to?
no, you go ahead.
I mean, it's, Bob's presentation, I mean, obviously we're involved, but, he talks about the 3 funding. Obviously, the first thing is, does Scio want to fund roads? I mean, that's the first question I think we need, the township board needs to decide. I mean, townships doesn't have to, they're not obligated to fund roads.
Right.
Obviously, that's road commissions, challenge, I mean, that's their responsibility. But if not, then all the local roads will never be improved. There'll be, winter, they'll get snow straight, they'll get some dust control, some grading, but beyond that, the road commission by law cannot really invest in local road improvements. So then it's like, that's the first question. So if that's the case, then it comes down to, I think the revenue sources, we obviously did the township-wide SAD, that was one option. Township can do a levy, which basically, voted on by the people and say, okay, let's figure out what we want to do and, voted on by the people. And then the other one was the Act 51, where you levy each year, figure out, okay, let's say the fall of 2023 or the summer of 2023, next year we want to do these 3 roads, these 5 roads, whatever number is, and you add those all up, each road, let's say, is $100,000, just keep it simple, right? So these 5 roads is $500,000. And we say, okay, for the township to have $500,000 in 2024, we need to levy probably 4/10 or some number like that, Okay, so you put that on the winter taxes and then you collect it and then next
Levy
year
would be
an annual,
approved by the board.
right,
Every year.
every year.
Yeah.
So you get you get a lot of flexibility with that option.
Right, and by state law, you can levy up to three mills, but I mean, obviously that 3 mills in Scio would be like $3.6 million. I don't see us levying 3 mills.
No, it took us 10 years to spend that on just connecting roads.
So those are really the 3 options, the annual, the voted on, and with the annual, it is the township board would decide each year what projects you want to do for the next year. And then, you do the same thing, find out, in 2025, what projects do we want to do? So in 2024, we'd say, we want to do these 10 roads, and let's say each road here gets 100,000. So next year, that in 2025, we need to raise $1 million. So that's sort of what Mike Homier, laid out. Those are really, funding options. I don't know, did I miss anything?
No, but each of those is in the document. Each of those have pluses and minuses to them, and we laid those out. But those are the 3 options.
So the board does. Yeah, all of us, I think I'm going through everyone on the board. So far, everybody has said, yes, I mean, we do want our roads improved. So I don't think that's a problem, that number 1 question.
Or improved or at least maintained, I think that's.
Well, right, improved or maintained, we kind of use them together, but, and then when we had our closed session, Mike, again, or yeah, because he wasn't there for the rest of it, but he did say, well, you need to start thinking about the next options of road funding. And then some of the board members are running with that, like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this. I'm like, you know what is again, what's the road advisory committee supposed to do? So and I kept telling them that there's a presentation we just started, 2 meetings ago, so. And I know, Patrick, you asked me to go through and give my opinion, and it's just been too crazy. I didn't get to it, but I figured that we would all discuss this and come up with the pros and cons, and then maybe have a recommendation, to, maybe we'll narrow down to one type of funding and then send it over to them.
So I think the next issue is what's the scope of it?
Oh,
And we had talked about connector roads. We've also talked about an essay, basically, as opposed to now where we've done SAGs with each neighborhood, we would across a 15-year span, probably about 15 years, I think, to just to redo every neighborhood.
The question is, like last time, we set a list of 20-some roads, which in hindsight was like, okay, that became a challenge. The other question, next time, do you want to have specific roads again? Or you could, do specific roads, that's one way, or you can say, okay, let's do all the collector roads again. Local collectors, like we sort of did last time, or let's do all the local roads. So then you would include the subdivision roads, like the Park Ridges, the Laurentides, all those neighborhoods, rather than, because I think with the township board, when you do all these neighborhood SADs, it becomes a lot of work for the township versus if you did something that was township wide and people know they're going to get it's more efficient that way rather than, because each neighborhood SAD, one thing I see is negative with the township neighborhood SAD is you have, some people can really afford it, but some people might be on fixed income. And so then you're splitting a neighborhood because, and I talked to people on Park Ridge, they've collected, a fair amount of the people, but some people are really dead set against it. So at the end of the day, you have some people really for it, some people really against it. And sometimes you're going to get over that 50-60%, but still some people are like, I really don't want this, or they really can't afford it. Because neighborhood SADs are now, they used to be $3,000 to $5,000, now they're $8,000 to $12,000. So it's a bit, $1,000, $1,200 a year would be their tax over the last 10 years, which becomes a huge burden. Versus if you develop a plan where everyone paid, the number I ran was like $200 a year, versus $1,200 a year, and you could look at fixing all the local roads.
And this would avoid, we really tumbled this after the Park Ridge thing, where we just, this divides neighborhoods. And this is a way where you wouldn't divide the neighborhood. The new road that we put in would be exactly the same as the current one.
What do the neighboring communities do? Townships, Chelsea, Pittsfield.
Well, the cities, cities have their own, cities usually, like Ann Arbor has 2 or 2.5 mills. Most cities have millages. They just either voted on or impose millages. Ypsilanti Township has a millage for roads. I think it's 1 mill for roads, pathways, and sidewalks. Pittsfield takes out of the general fund. Superior Township, I think, takes out of their general fund. Other townships have millages, so it's a mixed bag. I think Lodi just did a millage, so they're doing it. So it's across the board. Different.
Yeah, and it
things.
depends. In some of those, the charter townships, they have a higher mill, and then cities definitely do in villages. So we can't really compare to them. And there was one township that just passed a millage for, but I think they're all gravel. It was like 0.45.
Is that Lodi?
Well, what's the difference between a millage and what we're saying to do township wide, including all the local streets? What's the difference?
Oh, no, the millage is just the funding source. So then we would decide, we can't do private roads with public funds. So, but.
Millage gives you a bit more, like millage versus SAD, millage gives you a little bit more freedom than the SAD.
Well, the
Well,
process is
explain it.
definitely simpler.
You explained.
Okay.
I think what I heard you say is not individual SADs,
Right.
right?
Right.
So what are you calling that? A millage or a large SAD? I don't understand the
No,
difference.
Well, that's what we're
I mean,
talking about.
So, the way you could, I think the question is, do you just do like the collector road like we did this time? You know, just the Delhi's, East Delhi, West Delhi, you know, all those type of roads? Or do you do all the local roads? It's like 30 miles of local gravel,
Yes,
30 miles of
I'm
subdivision.
following you.
So if we did all of them,
What are you calling that?
well, for this, there's two, that goes back, there's like 3 ways to fund roads. Township-wide SAD, which I think we've had a lot of pushback and a lot of confusion, so that's probably number 3 on the list. Then the other ones are millages, and there's a couple different ways of doing a millage. You have a millage and you vote it on by the people, and people say, yes, I'd like, you know, and then it becomes a certain dollar amount every year, you know, like a half a mil, and then you figure out the plan. The other way that Mr. Homier explained is under Act 51, you can levy a different amount each year. So you decide, you can develop a multi-year plan. Let's say you develop a multi-year plan. Year 1, we want to do 5 roads, year 2, 10 roads, year 3, 10 roads, and, you know, figure out how much that's going to be. So in the first year, let's say it's $500,000, we need it, okay, that's gonna be, 0.4 mils. So each year you do a levy based on the need. And if something came up, it's like, oh, we need something like culvert or bridge field. You can say, okay, we need to raise another 0.2 of a mil because we need $300,000 to fix that thing. So it gives you a little bit more flexibility, but also puts more of a burden on the township elected officials because you're gonna decide each year rather than if it's a 10-year millage.
Right, so with that
But that
type,
goes back to my question, what are the neighboring townships doing?
Well, that's what I
Of
said.
those.
Some have millages.
Yes.
A lot of them are charter townships like Superior and Pittsfield. A charter township has a lot higher taxable value, not taxable value, and levy a lot more.
Yeah.
The general levy is like 3 times, I believe, or some number, but it's a lot higher than what because the township can only
It's
levy
a
1 mil,
min-
right?
yeah, and a charter is a minimum of 5 mil, but they can go up to 10 or more.
But are they covering collector and private roads?
Yeah.
Okay,
Most are doing that.
that's what I'm asking, what?
Oh,
Yeah, most are
Conceptually,
doing,
what are
yeah,
they
sorry, I
doing?
didn't understand. your question. Most of them, yeah. There's a few that do neighborhood SADs, but it just becomes a lot of work.
So why would we not do what the other neighboring communities are doing conceptually?
well,
But
So,
that-
okay,
that
so
makes
that-
it-
are
I
we in
agree, that makes
favor?
the most sense. Yeah, I would think, but
okay, so are we in favor of doing all the roads except for private or just doing connector roads or collector roads? Like we did before?
I'm with whatever the other townships are doing, we should be analogous to that.
And the other problem with Scio is that we're a general law, the very basic government, but our revenue is like at the 56% of a charter township. So we have a hard time comparing ourselves to other townships because, or unless we just go with like charter township but we don't have the tax base of, I mean, it's,
yeah, I bet you
We're
the
an
highest, I
anomaly.
bet you we're the biggest, highest tax base of a charter, of a non-charter township.
yeah, we're in when we went through the budget process,
I'm so confused.
it was 86%. We're in the top 86% for general law with our
I
tax.
think the first thing we gotta decide is what we'd like to do.
Mhm.
And then once we agree on that,
So
then we
let's go.
decide how to do it.
Right, that's what we're,
Okay? Go ahead.
So the first question is, do we want to fix roads? And it sounds like.
yeah,
I
we
mean,
want.
if we didn't want to fix road, I guess they probably wouldn't have created this committee, right? Because if they didn't want to fix roads, it's just like, no sense having it. So the second question is like Bob's saying, do we fix the same gravel roads again? Or do we look at fixing a plan to develop, fix all the subdivision roads too? And by fixing them just means, if you have a gravel subdivision, you're gonna get new gravel on your gravel subdivision. If you pave subdivision, you get new pavement. We're not gonna pave someone's.
And Roy, I liked your idea that if a neighborhood says, we're sick of gravel and we want to pave, then we do is SAD. Yeah,
Yes, exactly.
So it's, it sounds like we're saying that our default plan is to just maintain the status quo. And if any community wants to go above that, either paving or adding sidewalks or things of that nature, then it would be.
But it isn't status quo because right now we're not doing private roads.
well, we
Well,
can't, we
wouldn't be
won't be
doing
able
private
to.
roads
What's
anyway.
that?
We can't do private roads.
But only
Subdivision roads.
subdivisions.
So,
We're not doing them right
Not
now.
right
no,
I'm saying we ought to
We
include
could.
that.
Yes.
as long as they're not private.
Yes.
And that's where, see, this is another thing, when we decide this, we have to to go through and make sure that we have the correct roads under the correct, so is this a private road? Is this a, public road, paved gravel? And because it's changing all the time, the more developments that come in. We gotta keep up on that.
But the road commission has. They
Don't
know
need
what, they
private
know,
though,
but we don't, I mean, at the end of the day, we're not responsible
It's
for
irrelevant.
private, so.
right?
private's
But
private.
we actually, the township can initiate, or not initiate, but we can provide special assessment districts for private roads.
That's separate though, isn't it?
But that's a
Yeah, so we
separate.
still need to do.
It's separate than what we're talking about.
Right, but what I'm saying is that we need to know our roads. And we have to have updated
We
categories.
do, we do.
I think the road commission has a pretty good list of all of them. I mean, it might be a few private, because the thing is, sometimes a private driveway could be a private road, because sometimes people create driveway and subdivide it off. Is that a private drive or a private road? You know what I'm saying? Like I own,
Sorry, don't throw things. I'm new here. I
Okay,
don't
so-
know our roads. Where can I find this information?
Well, there's some maps and
the road
then,
commission's website, yeah.
and our assessor has the roads too.
The Washtenaw County Road Commission
Right.
website is gonna have a map of
I
what roads are
remember
private,
we
what
saw
roads
that.
are.
Yeah, and you
Sorry.
know what? But when I pulled that map up, it doesn't show all the little roads.
What happened, yeah, then it's broken up by the township in all the different sections.
Okay, that's here at the township.
Yep.
Yeah, that part.
Each a section is a square mile.
Mhm.
The township is generally 6 square miles. So that's why first you pull up this certification map for Scio Township, which would be the whole 6 miles. Then you'd have to zoom in by section 1, section 2, section 3 to find out if there's any subdivisions in that section. And it's a little confusing.
But this is all still accessible for the Washtenaw County Road
Yep.
Commission.
And Jeff, you raised a good point. When we were, our thinking was to have this discussion today or whenever, and then come back and revise it, and then add the maps that are relevant. So there's multiple types of roads. We would lay those out and then get down to the connectors and subdivision roads. And so that would be part of a larger presentation, but it would come from exactly the source you're talking about.
I see, okay.
And
Because,
what,
everybody knows the roads, but they don't. I mean, it's-
and what I could do, I can get a list of those roads. I mean, you can get, I'm not saying, I expect, I could bring back a list of, it's like, then we could look, it's like, these are all the roads we're talking about. So then, help clarify, it's like, so someone's like, is this road in it? It's like, if it's on the list, yes, like, is Park Bridge, Laurentide, and these roads, Cottontail, all those roads that are public roads, but I'm sure that I can't think of a private road offhand, but obviously there's a lot of them.
Well, Saginaw Hills would be,
Yes, Saginaw Hills are the private roads.
yeah. Well, and the other thing is, so we'll have a list of gravel roads, a list of paved roads, and then there's like Park Ridge and Laurentide, they have a little bit of paved on each end, so we have to keep track of all of that too. And I don't know if the road commission would have that on the map.
Not exactly.
Yeah, okay, so we'll get
We
there.
have to lay out a timeline though for each of these, like. over a
Yeah, we
10-year
have to have a
period,
plan.
Because you're not gonna get all the money to do everything this year. You probably don't have the manpower to do it all in 1 or 2 years anyway.
I would put it in a spreadsheet, just.
Yeah,
same as
exactly,
what
same
we've
type of
got,
thing, yeah.
With a reoccurring
Yeah.
kind of cadence based on road type,
And we should
But-
evaluate the roads too.
but we're in the
because-
details. The question was, what's the scope?
Yeah, exactly. Back to your question, do we want to do?
I want to do everything. I'm going to go on record. I want to do everything. And if you put your hand up and say the same, then
Should we take a
it's a
vote?
moot point, we can move on.
I'd say going in, I'd like to at least study everything and see if we can lay it out cost-wise and time-wise, and if it makes sense. I mean, we may find it's prohibitive. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
I guess that's where, if we can look at it, why wouldn't you start big, right?
Mhm.
And then if we say, you can't afford big, well, then we can scale back, but I would think we'd want to look at all the roads, because with the neighborhood, it just becomes a lot of work for the township and a lot of confusion and there's more negatives than our positives.
Well, and I think that once we get a plan in place, we'll just, start over and then,
Want to vote on this or what? Let's move on.
okay, so should we vote on each part?
Well, the big only question right now is, do we want to do all the roads or a portion of it?
Okay.
Just go.
Well, we all voted, or yes, I mean, we wouldn't be talking about this if we didn't think that the roads needed to be improved, right? I don't think that's gonna be a problem, so could you put that down as right now 6 yeses for,
Well, I'm gonna depend on you, Jeff, I don't want.
well, for the roads to be improved? Do we wanna improve roads, Jeff?
Excluding private roads, yes.
Okay,
Well, that's the second question. Do we want roads improved? Yes. And then what roads do we want encompassed in that, right? And we're saying we want subdivision, public, collector roads, everything but private, right?
Yeah.
So that's the
Yeah.
second question.
All public local roads.
Yeah.
is that, so we need to vote on that?
We need to agree, I guess. You
Yeah,
said
it's
yes,
just-
I said yes.
It's just a way of moving forward.
Okay,
Yes.
so yes, Patrick, you have that down, I guess,
Yes.
So we'll move.
except for Roy, he's
No,
still
I said
thinking.
yes. I just didn't want, I didn't want
No,
Jeff.
thank you, thank you. I hadn't said anything, you're right.
I didn't want.
Okay, Jeff,
assume
sorry.
that he was,
No,
I
we're good though, we're good, thank you.
don't want to say 6-0 when Jeff.
Probably
thinks
just
it was-
easier to vote next time.
Okay,
What else you got?
should we have a vote? Should we, do you wanna vote?
No, I'm good, I'm good,
He
we're
did say
good.
yes.
Okay, we're all-
I heard him say yes.
Okay, there's 6 yeses, Patrick. All right, what was the next one? Oh, and then if a neighbor, or if a road wants to upgrade, then we will provide a special assessment package to them, which will need to, create.
Can I add to that?
Mhm.
If a community, if a road, if the community wants to jump in line or jump ahead or whatever, they're like, no, I can't wait for, assuming we establish a process for, or a timeline when we're going to be doing these improvements, and a community or an area says, well, no, we want this done earlier, would that not be a situation to consider a SAD as well, an SAD, excuse me?
not for regular improvement maintenance, but if they wanted to, if they went from gravel to paved, or,
But I think what Jeff's saying, so let's say we develop this plan
okay,
and, year one of these 5 roads, these 10, and this neighborhood is in year 8 or 12. And people are like, I can't wait that long. So they want to do, fine, I'd rather pay for it myself than rather wait for the township. So the question is, would the township then allow, is that what you're?
I guess, I don't know, I was just throwing out.
but I'm
some
hoping that
scenarios.
this
Yes.
isn't gonna be 8 to 12 years. And, if we have a millage, then every year that Headley amendment, it's gonna go down in the millage from 5 mils, let's say 5 mils
I
down.
think at that point, we would maybe go view the road and see what's ahead of it on the docket and see if it's in worse shape and maybe reapportion
Mhm.
in the timing. That's all.
Yeah,
We'll
we
figure
could
that out.
have a clause that this list is subject to change based on,
And I think in our committee, when we talked about doing this, it's like, one way you could do it is you divide up the township, you divide it up in quadrants. So not all the roads in this township, so like when we did the township-wide SAD, we said we're gonna, not all the roads are gonna get, so we did some in this area, this area, this area, so like spreading the well. So if you were in a big subdivision, your whole sub might not get done in 1 year. We'll do a portion, let's say in the southwest, in the southeast, northeast, northwest. Each year, you're sort of spreading that project. I mean, you're not gonna split it up into small little pieces, but enough to make it worthwhile. Then people say, okay, it's good. Phase 1 of my subdivision is getting done this year, 2 years in phase 2, and then I'm happy. And then people say, oh, there's the results. It was no different, when I did the whole county-wide thing, you have to, spread the wealth so everyone's seeing something, from Manchester Township to South Township to, Bridgewater.
I think those are details we work out later.
Exactly.
yeah,
This is
so
a lot of
we're,
detail.
we'll have, what do you, a rating
Yeah.
list, I guess.
Let's work it out later.
Yeah.
Okay, and
I think that recording the state of the road, just bear with me here, seeing what's going on Park Road and all the, push to pave it, we've got to be really clear when we generate all of this material that we state roads will not be upgraded using this millage fund, whatever it's going to be, and that we have a good record of the state of every single inch of road. This is gravel. It's gonna stay gravel unless something else happens. This is paved, it's gonna stay paved. You know, so that we don't have nefarious actors basically trying to use these funds to go and do something that they shouldn't be doing.
So inventory of our infrastructure.
I think it's really important.
Inventory of our
Yep.
infrastructure.
A road
Good.
system.
Oh, so while we're speaking of infrastructure, it's been brought up, and I brought this up a little bit earlier, but it's been brought up to, I think it was Jan that, or the planning commission, but you know, we have all, or maybe it was you, I don't know, it's been a while, but we have all these committees and they're doing different things and some things overlap. But sidewalks are kind of fallen to the side. There's bike paths and it, you know, of course, there wouldn't be sidewalks across the whole township, but there's like gaps over in Scio, you know, uplands and Scio Ridge, that type of thing. So they're asking us to look at that as well, or have that under our funding. Bike paths is another, and there was something else. Oh, culverts. That should be in our funding as well.
They're funding in our purview to make recommendations on, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for whatever, if it's a millage, you know, to have that, make sure that we can take care of the culverts. Now culverts, they shouldn't break down as fast as roads, right?
They'll last 30 to 40.
Okay,
I mean,
yeah,
it's
we'll be gone by
concrete, so,
then.
50 years, I mean, depending on the material that was used, yeah.
Okay,
But they do fail.
and then,
So
yeah,
do we have a recommendation about millage versus levy?
well, the
Those are two
levy,
kinds of voted millage
right.
versus a board decided levy. Do we have a recommendation on that, or is that something we leave for the board?
Well, so with the two types of levies, the voter approved or the other one, both of them, from my understanding, they can be a tax write-off. You know, a tax deduction, because it's based on the taxable value of your parcel. So I'm in favor of that, of course. I don't think anybody would be against that. But then, you know, there's a big issue with trust in our township and our trust in our government. And if we had a levy that was imposed on voters without a vote, I think that would not sit well. So I was thinking of this, and this is just my opinion, that if we had a voted millage and we did it for 5 years, and one of the reasons for 5 years is we can build up trust, but all are two reasons. And then the other is to, because of the Headley Amendment, it's gonna be rolled back every year and we're gonna have less money. So if we went to like 10-year millage, then by the end of that 10 years, we're gonna be really short on funds. So if we had it in shorter increments, but no matter what, you know, if we had a 5-year voted millage and we had a plan and everything just worked out smoothly, of course, it's gonna be, you know, work. But I think that we could build up trust, and then if the township decided to impose a levy, that people would be more open to it. But it's just my,
I'm also in favor of a voter approved millage. But in that 5 years that you're talking about, that wouldn't be us redoing all roads in Scio, right? That would
It couldn't possibly.
be, right.
well, and you know, there's roads that we don't have to do because they're in good shape. So that's, again, we would have to look at everything.
And what would the wording of the millage be, just for general maintenance of our local roads?
Oh, we take the Parks and Pathways millage and plug in the local roads, culverts, sidewalks, and what was the other, bike paths? I don't know how many bike paths we have because, again, we're roads and we haven't looked into all of that,
Are
but
there any bike paths in Scio?
now bike paths along the road. You know how they have we do.
Sharrows?
No, like Z Road right here, path up front. Goes down to Peters.
I didn't know there was a bike path.
Oh, yeah.
I've only used the sidewalk.
Okay. Well, it's a sidewalk to the south, bike path to the north.
Okay,
So it's, yeah, if you can.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, of course, we couldn't put bike paths on a gravel road, but it would just be on the paved roads, right?
Right.
We
I think we're
would,
getting into a lot of details that,
yeah, but for the wording,
Well, I'm just curious how it would be presented to voters.
well, and first, we have to present all of this to the board for their approval.
And they would develop the language.
No, we would, and then we would give it to them for them to approve. And then they would do the tweaks if they need. We'll give it to Jessica. But that's, so,
I prefer vote as well. Versus levy, because that's where you were, wasn't it? Were you talking about that?
yep, the difference between the two. I am not in favor of a SAD.
I-
And if you go into Township Hall and you bring up SAD to any of our staff, they're like running the other way. No. So I guess it boils down to a vote of a levy or a voted millage. I mean, for us,
What's the difference?
A voted millage is voted on by the general public.
Goes on the ballot.
Yeah, what's a voted?
And then sorry,
You
the
said
levy
voted
is
millage.
done by the
Yep.
board, correct?
yes, the levy is,
It's
I don't
mandated
want
by.
the board doing anything. I want a millage. I want it by the people.
okay, he wants a voted millage, so that,
So we three have already said the same. 4.
I guess I could go either way. I mean, I'd see the value of a levy, but I can see the value of a voted millage. I mean,
I don't trust the board. Do you trust the board?
well, we would develop a list of projects. I mean, we're developing the list of projects and say, okay, we want, these 10 projects, 5 projects done. And this is what you need to do. We're sort of telling them what would,
Kind of like what we do with
I'm going by observation of the board over the past year or 2 years, and they can't get it together, and Will does things behind the scenes and all that.
it's complicated right now. I gotta be honest.
Well, and-
I don't want to give them any more power than they think they have.
and we need more staff, and we're working on that.
We need more people in the community to start participating
Mhm.
in the community. Look how many people observe our meeting,
Right.
1 or 2 people.
But if I can say something real quick, when I was at the road commission, we were trying to get a countywide millage, and there's like no way. So we went downtown to the Board of Commissioners, because there's an old law, Public Act 283 from 1909, that was originally funded. And what we did is said, okay, how the roads were funded back in 1908, and that was 1903, is you put together a list, present it to the county board, they would levy it. So we did that for 2 years. We sort of built up the trust. It's like, okay, we're gonna do this list, here's the list of roads. We actually did that list of roads, came back year 2, carried another list, did that list of road. Then the county board, you develop that trust with the county board, and then we put that on the ballot. People said, okay, we like paying X amount of dollars for roads. So the other advantage, if you did a levy year 1, levy year 2, build up voter trust, and it's like, okay, the township says they're gonna do these 10 roads, they did them. The township said they're gonna do these 10 roads, they did them with this, then you can vote it. So that's where I can see that you could build up trust versus going out to them in the situation we are now. Is there trust? And they may just say, I don't trust the township, so I'm not gonna vote, support this millage.
I'm worried about another dynamic, which is fire.
Yes, and so,
That is huge. And then we throw another millage on top of that the next year.
and the bus millage is due in 2024. But the other thing is, let's say the fire millage passes, and then we impose another up to 3 mills without a vote. I think that would,
Well, I don't think we'd ever do 3. I mean, I think we do always less than a mill. So I guess you could run the numbers, but it's sort of like,
I'm not convinced the fire millage is going to pass.
I'm not either.
You're tripling the millage
Right.
it's a
for
huge,
fire.
it's, it is quite a large number. Is it 3.75?
It ends up being like 4.5 with the infrastructure they want to.
with both.
Yes, with both.
Now, again,
And I
that's the-
argued against it on the fire committee, but
But again, that's a special assessment and they can only use, they don't have to use up the 4.5. There's part of it that goes to capital that is fixed because of bonding, but the other part is levied per year, just like it is now. And the chief would have to present to the board what needs to be done or what he thinks is done, and then the board has to approve of that. So it's not gonna be a 4.5 every single year. Because it is, yeah. But it's the same, it's kind of similar to this levy that we're talking about.
So I think we've got to go with the public on, but I worry about. So money's probably going to go back from the past SAD. We won't be able to put it on this ballot. It will be 2024. And there will not be anything that happens with roads for 2.5 years.
Well, it could, because we can pay for things out of the general fund. I'm not saying that we would do that, and I hate to dip
that's
into the
a
general fund.
concern we should keep in mind. I think I'm right. There's this dynamic and this length of time that could happen with nothing happening with roads.
So could as a stopgap, could a levy be a temporary solution? The board levy.
They could.
Well, we could do anything they want, right?
Well, no, but
I think we need to make a recommendation, let the board.
Mhm.
Chew on it.
well, I mean, I think that Patrick's identified a gap though in coverage that if we're going to be making recommendations to the board, perhaps we should also consider that.
And I did ask Jess about, so in 2024, it's the presidential, they're gonna have the primary and all of that. And when the best time to have something like this on the ballot. So I think there's one in February for the primary, or February, March, but then later on, there's the August and then the November, as we all know. So I think the August would be the best.
What's that?
Because that is when the Board of Trustees are voted in or not, at the local government, and more people come out, and especially during a presidential year. I mean, they seem to, but the primary in February, when they decide who's gonna be the Republican or Democrat, usually people don't show up for that. I don't know why, but so those later ones. And then there's the November, which is kind of people seem to be pretty gung-ho with voting, so they just check things off. I mean,
Again, that leaves us, I'm just thinking about the funding and the amount of money available. That's 2024, doesn't show up for another 6 months. So again, we'll be 2 years without being able to do anything on roads.
Is that the timeline? I'm sorry, I'm ignorant on these things. So once let's say that it was on the ballot in August, and it passed, then you're saying that we would not see the funds for
It
that?
goes on to taxes.
the winter should,
Winter 24, so you have money in 25.
yeah,
I see.
okay, so it would be pretty quick, but we're
So
still,
it's still worth
That's
20
2 years from now.
Yeah,
oh, wait, it would be winter of 2025?
winter 24. December 24, you collect the money in February of 25, and then you can spend it in the summer of 25.
Yeah,
So it's voted on in August or November of
Again, that's
24.
just something to think about. It's 2 years without having any money for roads.
Yeah. Well, then I think that, now we have 3 options for that, right? We do nothing. We do the general fund, or we do a levy, we recommend on these things.
I guess we could have
Well-
short-term and long-term.
sure, we could have different options, and we have to wait and see what the board's going to do with that, the excess funds too.
That is a question. So in February, we approved, lists of projects I think the road commission gave us. What, is that on some track to get?
What happened is during then the budget, the budget process, and so they gave me roads to do the budget, and when I presented it, when I told what's his name, Rod Taylor from Manor-Castarian about what's going on. And it was recommended to, because you can amend the budget later on. So I figured out the roads, you know, as far as like the 4 and the DDA district. And I said, oh, well, we can use the revolving funds. Okay. Then there's the neighborhood roads. And I said, well, we could use the general fund. We'll get a grant for that and really we'll only end up paying like $5,000 because I believe that we do the work first and then they give us the grant or they subtract it off the bill. Yeah. So then I said the rest of them would be under the township wide. And now we have this big question and we don't know if we can spend the money or not other than Park Road, which I did include. And he
So
said
60, was it 65 for?
60,000 for,
60,000,
yeah.
okay.
So then all of that was given to the board, all this information that, and the board approved it. They were fine with that. So with the assumption, or not the assumption, that's not the right word, that later on, depending on what the excess funding, if we could use it or not, because then we can amend the budget. So that's how that worked out. And it was
So-
3 weeks of,
So the question is sort of like, there's a section of Pratt Road, section of Peters Road, section of Scio Road, section of Park Road from Z towards Parkland Plaza that were in what we talked about. And those were roads on that spreadsheet that only had been done once. And all the other ones, I think, for the most part, have been done twice. So I mean, it's a question why we wouldn't wanna, because I drove those roads and, because what's happens over time, gravel roads, the gravel starts going down. Once
Yeah,
the
I
gravel
know.
gets lower than the surrounding yard, then the water sits in the road rather than can't get off. So when I drove Pratt and I drove, you know, Park, it's like, it's probably been 5 or 6, 7 years. It needs another 4-inch lift. So I guess I'm not sure why we wouldn't fix those roads because they were on the original list. We've only done them once. All the other roads we've done twice. So why would we exclude those roads?
because we don't know if the money, if we can use the money or not.
Why can't we use the money?
Well, if the SAD has ended, we have to give the excess back. This is one of the, you know, but they're arguing that, saying that the SAD money doesn't have an expiration. We can use it as long as we have it until it runs out, which is not
I
true.
wrote you a letter about it. You could read the letter I wrote.
But I mean, we asked Mr. Homier that question. He said, no, there is no timeline. Because I mean, the difference is on a neighborhood SAD, we say we're gonna pave your road, or we're gonna do these improvements. And after 10 years, we paved your road or put gravel on or replace your culvert. That's a defined, you know, what we're doing. And there's money left over, you give it back. This at the beginning, we're talking about repair and maintain roads. So it's not like you're ever really gonna stop. It's not like a fixed project. It was like repair and maintain
Well,
roads.
that's not how Public Act 188 is. I mean, there is a protocol in Public Act 188. It's not different. And the other thing is the notification of publishing, you know, how you have to in two different newspapers and whatnot, and the letter that went out to the public stated that it was a 10-year maintenance program with 10 years of collection. So are we lying to the public? I mean, you know, it's either, and
This is year 10 too, so we technically, I mean, next year you could argue, but this year,
it started 2013, December 2013. That was the first collection, so December, so if you count 10 years, it's December 2023. And we started spending that money before the 2014 budget. Yeah, I pulled all that.
but we did 24, I mean, we did 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So why can't we spend in 23 to make it 10 years? Right? 14 was the first year we spent the money.
No, it was
We didn't have
in the
money.
fiscal year to 2013 that we started spending the money.
We didn't have
yes.
the money until 24, I mean, to 14.
No, we did, because it was started collected in December 1st of the 2013.
It was on the taxes in December. That means you got.
That's when it starts.
February.
And then also Mike said, well, whenever the board approved it was September 24th, 2013, 10 years later. So, I mean, and he also said that it wasn't done properly, so.
Why are we arguing about it?
Because there's this money that's left over and or do we do these roads or not? And that's where the board is going to decide.
Yeah, so why are we arguing?
We're not, we're having a
We're
discussion.
wasting time.
So the road funding plan, is this, there's more of a discussion.
So, we'll take this back, revise the document and come back to you all.
Okay, so the voter approved millage, is that, Roy, you said you could go either way. Do you,
Well, I think it's part of it's sort of as this timing, as Patrick brought up, it's sort of like,
oh,
you know, if there's gonna be a gap, you know, to say we only do this way, I guess until we get more information to not do roads for 1 or 2 years. You're gonna get further behind when there is a tool in the toolbox, which would be an annual levy.
Patrick, in the list, could you, or wherever in your paperwork, could you put gap funding?
I've got short-term answer.
Yeah,
Your
something,
suggestion, Jeff, was remind me.
That we do the voter approved millage, but for the gap funding, the levy. And it seems like
So
it's,
a one-year levy.
yes,
Oh,
and it
levy.
seems like that's a safe bet if, let's just say the voter version of the millage, which we won't have access to the funds until very end of 2024 passes, then it sounds like there is public support for a millage for improving our roads, in which case the board would be safe to pass a levy as a stopgap.
yeah, or the general fund, because that's another,
Or general fund.
you know, and also I really want the township to take advantage of grants. And we're getting all these emails from SEMCOG and some other places that are talking about grants, and we could, you know, for roads and for all kinds of infrastructure. But again, we don't have, or this way, because that's where the offices are, we don't have anybody to do them.
Most local roads are not eligible for most of those grants, though.
Well, and the problem with Scio is that we have such a large revenue that we don't qualify for a lot of them. But it's worth a try.
Lower the taxes.
Our taxable
Yeah, let's
value-
keep going.
Taxable value is too high.
Yeah, we can't move away from Ann Arbor. Okay. Anything more to this, or, I mean, we're gonna have to come back and figure out details.
Mhm.
At least we have a start, because
Absolutely.
we're gonna have,
This is a lot of progress.
we'll have to give the board details. Okay, oh. Oh, I know, another question was, is this going to be just roads? I mean, road funding, do we call it that, or do we change it to transportation and put the busing and other under it? That's a question that was brought up at the board.
We've been talking about that and we're not sure.
Or should we keep them separate? Okay,
I would be in favor of merging.
you would?
Yes, I like the idea of transportation as a whole approach. We're only focusing on one method of transportation, and that's likely to be the only method that we'll end up with.
Okay,
I think getting from point A to point B is something that we need to have a holistic view on.
I think you get bogged down.
well, for future, I mean, we don't have to figure that out right now, but,
I agree, having watched the Transportation Alternative Planning Committee. We lost track of pedestrian. We got focused on bike trails. And there wasn't a lot of money to do much. And, you know, $600,000, whatever it was, doesn't go very far, sad to say. But we just lost track of it. And so I think I think we need to look at it more globally, but we need to make for sure we keep our eyes riveted on all of the possibilities and try to be comprehensive.
You're not gonna sacrifice roads for a bike path or something else. You have vehicles, you're not getting rid of vehicles. This is not a walking town.
I didn't say that.
No,
Yeah,
no,
well,
it's
I
about
think
making sure
there
we
are-
don't focus on one thing and forgetting the others.
That's why
Is
I'm
that what
saying,
I'm-
if you bring in other issues, you're gonna get bogged down.
Well,
And
you
then
just
you're
said that
gonna
this is
have
not,
competing interest. And nothing will get done, trust me.
it's not competing interest though, because if you can get some people out of cars, then you're gonna reduce the amount of car traffic and therefore the
It's not
traffic
our-
issues
Not our
as
purview.
well. I'm
Not our-
sorry.
Not our purview.
Because is our purview just roads or our purview transportation? I guess, I mean, it
Roads.
goes next to
Roads.
cords.
Roads
Well,
advisory
that's what
committee.
I was asked to bring up because I mean, if we'll have to change our charge or have asked them to change our charge.
So you would say that sidewalks are not part of a road?
Correct.
So if we don't have sidewalks and people are walking in the road, it's not the road commission's
Well, and
purview to address.
the problem with the sidewalks is that sidewalks have fallen in a gap. Because transport, well, it's not happening more, but parks, preserves and pathways. Yeah, so pathways are not along, and they're built differently too, because one is considered recreation, the other one is considered infrastructure. So that's, yeah, they're trying to find where to put sidewalks in the right of way, no.
That's the planning commission's job, not our job.
Planning commission, how would the planning commission affect sidewalks?
We're here for maintenance, and to see our roads get either upgraded or maintained. We're not here to move policy or philosophy. It's not our purview.
I don't understand how paving a road that was gravel is that different from adding sidewalks to a road that didn't have sidewalks.
It is different. When
You're
talk
just
about roads.
you're improving the road. In both cases is my position on that.
Two different,
But I guess if we really are transportation,
We're not.
are we making an assumption that everyone has a car or vehicle inside
Well,
of township? And that's
we're not
probably not a true
transportation.
statement.
Right, but this is what we're being asked to decide. Do we stay roads or do we make it broader to transportation?
I vote for roads. That's what they put us together for. We will get bogged down
I don't
if we
want to take on
try to boil the
buses
ocean.
and- Yeah, we got enough to work through.
All right, let's have this conversation and I'll find out more.
Yeah, we're not gonna settle this.
That one's not gonna get settled, I don't think.
Yeah,
There's pros and cons of both.
right, and I would like to see. I mean, we meet once a month and we don't have a handle on what we're doing. I mean, we do, but we don't, because it just seems like.
All right, yeah, So what else we got left?
Okay, the culverts and grant. So I did talk with Mark Thompson about the grant that from Tiffany Oliphant. And it sounds like there could be another round of funding, but he's looking into that. He's meeting with Adam Lape, finding that out for us. But so I did tell him about, well, we have these 4 culverts that are rated poorly, or in the poor, right? There's 4 left. So I went out to Park Road by the Huron River Swim Club. The pictures are included with our, that's really bad. I mean,
It's starting to rust out, right?
really bad. The other one, I think, because there's another culvert down by Birkdale, that one's in good shape. Did you both go out to the West
Yeah.
Delhi?
Yeah.
And that one looked okay.
That was in good shape.
Yeah, there's some rust, but I think they're all gonna rust. And then Linda did not get out to Night Road, so I don't know what that culvert. But people kept stopping and saying, "Are you okay?" Like, yeah, I'm looking at culverts. You wanna join me? So, so if we're going to, Mark is going to connect back with me regarding this grant, and hopefully if we can take advantage of it, then we'll choose the worst culvert and go from there. I don't know how much it's gonna cost, but I mean, whatever. Okay, the November 1st meeting, since that's during the election time, and now that we have extended election days because of we passed that the ballot question. So they're gonna need this room. Do we want to reschedule for later on in November, skip November altogether? I mean,
Your schedule. Make it a week later.
it would be 2 weeks.
Why couldn't be the 8th, whatever November, if it's on November 1st, I guess it'd be the 8th. Well, wait, that can't be oh, I see. So they're prepared, I mean, because the election's not until
But they're gonna get
Seven.
everything mailed in.
It's 9 days of election now. Walk in.
and they use this room.
They're gonna use this room. So no. Oh, wait, November 1st. Yeah, so November 7th is the election.
Right.
Or the official election day. So yeah, the whole week before that would be,
So the 8th.
it would be, yeah, taken,
So when you say it's 9 days, so many days before and so many days after now, you're saying?
I think it's just the 9 days before the election
Yeah,
day,
yeah.
the official, isn't
That's
it?
should be after.
I hope not, but
Yeah, no, I think there's something going on with the mail-in ballots for military that will be after. I don't know, but I'm not paying attention to that. I just care about the room.
so we could have it the day after.
We could, I wonder,
15th.
should we move it to November 8th or November
15th.
15th?
15th.
I think they'll be clear out of here by November 8th.
See that? Yeah.
Should
maybe
we do
not, I don't
15th?
know.
15th,
Should be 4th Thanksgiving.
because the
we're
next
fine.
meeting doesn't come until the 6th of December, which gives us 1, 2, 3 weeks. So 15th works pretty well.
Is that good for everyone?
Yeah.
I mean,
As good as it can be from here, yeah.
we're still trying to get over this winter, thinking of next fall. November 15th, we'll reserve, oh, wait a minute,
Are we gonna step on somebody else? Yeah.
right.
So we should,
Well, how about,
should we check with Christie on the 15th and then get back to the group?
Yeah, and I'll ask about the 8th as well, just in case we'll have a couple of days and then,
What's available.
yeah.
I can send out an invite just to get it in tentatively if you guys want.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and then, we've already talked about this to some degree, updates to the Road Advisory Commission resolution in charge, so that's where the transportation sidewalks and whatnot come in. And I think we should read our charges again. There's 7 of them, and of course I don't have, still printing or was printing.
11 charges.
11? We have 11?
Yeah, A through K.
Oops. So I guess we've only been doing what, 7 of them?
Yeah, I actually pulled them up just to see. Sidewalks are mentioned 3 times in here, or pedestrian, assisting with pedestrian access. So sidewalks are mentioned. You're talking about the road advisory committee
Yeah.
charge, yes.
Well, why did they keep saying, where are we gonna put sidewalks when it's supposed to be ours already?
Somebody already gave it to us, looks like.
Mhm. It's 7B, C, E, and I. Those are the charges related to pedestrian pathways. And J says that we're supposed to collaborate with the Downtown Development Authority to maintain roads within the DDA district.
All right, see you at the meeting next week.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
Maybe we should read our chart more often.
Okay, so does it say pathways or sidewalks?
Well, let's see here.
How
So
many
B
times?
says, assist the township to ensure that ensure that the maintenance and improvement of public roads consider safety issues such as fire and emergency response, as well as pedestrian and non-motorized transportation. C says, help the township to integrate public safety for pedestrian and non-motorized transportation, as well as fire and emergency response. E
So
said, I'm sorry.
No, sorry, I thought you were finished, sorry.
E says clarify the township's policy and role in a road or sidewalk special assessment district and once approved by the township board, work to help implement SAD policy.
Well, we started working on that and then lots of stuff happened and now we're creating different funding.
Right.
But we still have to have a SAD policy, which,
I also have some stuff in here. So it says, I as partner with the Transportation Alternative Planning Committee and the Planning Commission to integrate sidewalks, pathways, crosswalks, pedestrian signals, and signage, bike lanes, trails, and other traffic calming safety measures.
well, then if we're overlapping with them and we do something, and I mean, it seems like things should be under certain committees, not overlapping where we can do something and they do something. And like, you know, the open spaces, land preservation, they can actually do parks or preserves or not, trailways or trails and whatnot, if you read their ballot language.
Right, so the planning commission, as far as I understand, cannot compel somebody to put in a sidewalk unless they are coming to the planning commission with certain requests, right? If they need to be rezoned, if they need a conditional rezoning, if they want to be a PUD, or certain conditional uses is, I believe, so I'd have to look a lot closer, when the planning commission can ask for the developer to put in a sidewalk. But let's say you have a parcel here with a sidewalk and this one without and this one with, the planning commission can't do anything about that gap, is my understanding. And that's where there would have to be some other, I mean, obviously it all goes to the board, but I think that that's where we would step in, especially
Okay.
since, you know,
So we're filling in the gaps for the gaps. That type. Okay, that makes sense. All right,
I cover a lot of things.
yeah.
Yeah, it does.
okay, let's revisit this next meeting. I'll put that under unfinished business. Okay, then there's the Dino Drive, which we talked about, and I guess, well, all right, so the other thing is that at the last board meeting, Linda came to public comments and she commented, and I was rude, I need to apologize, I was not professional, but it kind of threw me off, especially after some other things that happened in the board meeting. But anyway, she showed up at the public comments as a representative of the Road Advisory Committee and gave her recommendation. And I was like, wait a minute. The board liaison is supposed to do, you know, from the, I mean, everybody's entitled to the public comment, right? Because we're all, you know, so that's fine, but did we not, I mean, did we appoint her as representative for RAC?
No.
I mean, how do we handle this? I mean, if you want to go in front of the board, but, or in front of the board, but do you, I mean, I felt like, wow.
Well, did she represent herself as a representative of RAC or as a private citizen, which she's allowed to under public comment?
She said that she's a representative of RAC and she's here to encourage the board for the $780,000, and there was something else, and I just.
We gotta tell her that she can't do that, that's all.
I guess, but I'm not sure exactly how she worded it. I mean, obviously she is a member of RAC, so that's a fact. She's a part of the public, so she can speak, but I don't know, was she saying she was on behalf of the committee or? on behalf
Yes,
of-
she's a
That's what I'm asking.
representative, she's a representative of RAC, and then she went on to what she was recommending.
So if she said she'd been a member of RAC, that would change everything.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, because it was making it sound like the committee had said, this is what we want to do, you present it for us.
Okay, so why are you bringing it up? What-
So that we don't do it.
huh?
No, I mean, do we need,
That's-
I don't know how to handle this, I mean, do we need,
Well,
so
we-
can anybody do this, or should
No,
we
just
have a
need to- We
policy?
just need to agree that if we're gonna go before the board of trustees and call ourselves a representative of RAC, it's gotta be that we all agreed on the message that we're gonna send. That's all.
Yeah, and we voted on it because we might not all agree, but
This is simple.
majority rules.
And again, only the chair could do that.
What's that?
I would assume only the chair can do
Well, no,
that.
I guess we could, let's say we vote in to go, hey,
Yeah,
next meeting.
You can
you go.
designate.
Yeah, or
Sure.
you, or you, I mean,
Sure.
yeah, I mean,
Okay, so let's put that in a policy. I think this should be a policy then.
Along with the other policies that we've got.
Yeah, we're
essentially.
keeping a list.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with,
No, I mean, we do. There's a,
yeah, we're revising, getting that list taken care of.
We agree.
Okay.
is that something, Patrick, you'll write up and bring or something like that?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Well, we can email it. I mean, we have it.
We've got this is, I think we've got 4 or 5 policies. we've
Yeah.
passed
Yeah,
before
I didn't
this.
think we would have this many, but.
But
we're
we
adding
should
on.
review it in the next
We should
meeting
review
when
it.
all members
Okay.
are present.
Absolutely.
So we'll put that under unfinished business as well. Policy review. All right, so approval of the minutes.
so move.
Yeah. Well, are there
I mean,
any?
There's commentary that they're not long enough, but none of us want to write them. We're recording this meeting.
Well, and it's Bob is our minutes secretary, so it's up to him how he wants to keep the minutes. And he does include a link to the video.
I'll apologize publicly, but we are volunteers and we don't want to spend our whole life writing minutes. There's a recording. Watch it. Sorry.
Still on, a lot of minutes.
Patrick, it's your call as far as I'm concerned.
Actually, Bob usually, I wrote these because Bob was out. Bob usually writes them. I just took his model. And I found it much easier than it used to be, which I would spend hours working on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a transcript within the video as well. That can, usually it works out, but I know when you look at minutes back in history and like when Nancy Hedberg took them, it's like, did they even discuss anything? I mean, it's just like the topic and that's it. So I get where they're coming from.
That's all this, I'm just asking, that's all that's required by the law. It's just the topic. Unless there's a motion that's passed.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm. I mean, we could,
But I did put in task where we made assignments. So
yeah.
I wanted to make sure those didn't get lost. So.
So that a vote on the minutes,
I didn't move them.
anybody who wants to move them?
I didn't move them.
You
Yeah, Roy
did move them,
And
sorry.
I'll
Sorry,
second.
Roy, you did. And then
I'll second.
Ian second. And there's no money involved, so we can do a, what do you call that again? Voice vote. I'll say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay. Pass 6-0. Board and committee reports. Any questions on those? Okay. No educational information because we put it in with Jeff's and public comments.
Let me go man the station. Public comments. There are no hands raised right now.
How many are on?
Okay, we got Jonathan.
Yeah, I have a public comment. Sorry, I don't know.
No, I'm muting you. Jonathan Greenberg came first. So Jonathan, you're on mute.
Hi, thank you for taking the time to listen to my comments. This is Jonathan Greenberg, 6089 Green Mountain Circle. I think the formerly 6250 Park Road, which is why the section that was never touched. To explain 188 further, because it doesn't seem like folks here completely understand it. The wording of 188 is very specific in that it says you shall return the funds in a couple of conditions. If you go over your 10 years, and you can choose to count it however you want, but the 10 years is up. Or you can, you shall refund it if you collect more than was required, which you obviously did. So for both those reasons, you need to refund that money. I know it's not your decision, it is the board's, but hopefully you, being in your position, Roy, you should understand that. Maybe dig in on the 188 languages, unless you do understand it, in which case I'm wondering why you're bringing up information from a biased attorney who clearly has been paid to take a certain side. It's all very transparent to anyone paying attention. Please don't play these games. The money needs to be returned. It's not worth discussing here. And don't pretend you don't understand the legislation. And if you don't, then figure it out. Go read it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Paula wanted to talk. She didn't raise her hand.
Yeah, I want to thank you all for doing this work because you all are volunteers and it's a lot of work. And I know because I watch almost every committee and I read every agenda. And, you know, I agree with some of the stuff about sidewalks, but I think what Bob said is you need to focus on the roads. And I think any language, and personally, I brought this up several meetings ago on the Park Road issues, is that roads should be the main issue. When Parks and Pathways was formed, I think I understand Jeff's idea of like, and it's in your whatever little manifesto or whatever. But we do need to just like focus on the roads. I've been for a millage all along. And I think if voters will go for this open space thing, I listened to the last LPC meeting and, you know, they can't even say that, well, we could utilize a part of a farm for like a community farm. I mean, they do it in West Park for people in Ann Arbor. I see a lot of, or they could rent part of that out. There's a lot of young people who want to do farming for a business, but can't afford a farm there. And there's grants available for them to do, to subsidize, to buy more land. But as far as, I couldn't hear Linda, and I probably have a hearing problem, and maybe that's why I've reconfigured my Zoom and couldn't see my hand like it normally is. But I watched the Dexter Township about the annexation, and that issue came up amongst whatever's going on there in Dexter, that a person should be able to say that they are doing a public comment, even if they are on the board. There was a discussion, one of the women, that people are passing out petitions. And so if you're a volunteer, I think you also are an individual in a private citizenship. And I'm really big into the freedom of speech. And there's a lot of reasons why there's not trust with the current supervisor's leadership. And but I think he should just focus on the roads and let the Parks and Pathways people do the sidewalks, even though they're somewhat interconnected. And PC does a really good job with these PUDs requiring sidewalks. I know Esquire did some work for me and they had to pave their sidewalk along Jackson. But I also look at the DDA needs to be somewhat involved with sidewalks and how they're doing. I mean, I was listening to an old meeting of theirs from 2021 when Will Hathaway made himself supervisor of, or head of everything, every meeting. But they were talking about putting the sewage plant in and, you know, water so they can extend. I mean, this goes way back into the history of Spalding Clark and I think the vision, they need to have a vision of what they want to do with the township and what natural resources and how much funding we have. And plus people need to talk to their neighbors when they're, you get a little form in the mail. And I know during the Scio community news discussions, there's people who don't want to cut down all the trees along their road to pave it. So I get a little dicey about levies, like who can force what. And I'm very much into letting the voters decide. But I also go, when you have a bus situation like they do over there with the ravines where these people aren't safe, not for people to catch the bus, whether this comes out of general funds. I'm just saying, I'm not, I hear safety issues too, but I think personally, I like to see you all the roads. And that's it. And thank you very much for all the work you've put in.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
We don't have any other hands raised.
To adjourn.
Okay. What time is it? 8:46. Okay, 8:46. Vote to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Aye.